Hi everybody, welcome to Great Books, Big Ideas. I'm Jim, and I'm here to report on a book haul. I went to a local bookshop, which I haven't been to in a couple of months, and it's right outside the town of Westchester, Pennsylvania, about a mile outside of town, and it's called Baldwin's Bookshop. And it is an old converted barn filled with books. There's rare books in there. There's all kinds of old dusty books, and you can get lost in this store. It's a lot of fun to browse. It's been there forever, and I try to get over there like once every couple of months, often just for the sake of getting out of the house, and that's what I did today. I brought the dog with me. It was a beautiful May day, cool, sunny, breezy, just really sweet day. So I thought, let's get out and shop for some books. So I got some stuff, and I want to report on it. A bunch of Penguin classics, and then a couple other titles I'm interested in. The thing about Baldwin's bookstore is I often strike out there. I tend to have bad luck. Like if I have something in my mind I want to find, it doesn't usually crop up. Sometimes other books that I didn't anticipate finding, and something catches my interest and I'll do it. But I'd say at least 50% of the time, if not more than that, I would just walk out empty-handed. I just can't find anything to buy there. The prices aren't great. It's not like they sometimes overcharge for their books, but a lot of, if you shop carefully, you can find some good bargains. It's not like good for just dirt cheap, blow it out prices. But most of the paperbacks I got here were like $5. One of them was $8. So you're going to spend a little more money than you would at a thrift store or a library sale. But it's definitely a fun store to browse. And anyone who's visiting the area, if you're in the Philly area and you're in Chester County, and you love books, you really should put it on your list of places to visit, because it's just so much fun to explore. Anyway, here's what I found. Some of these were on my want list for Penguin Classics. Some were like not officially on the want list, but I had made a mental note to look out for them. And we're really, all these have to do with classical age, so Greco-Roman age. We'll start with one that was on my want list, and I was happy to find it. It is Xenophon, Conversations of Socrates. And this includes Socrates' Defense, Memoirs of Socrates, The Dinner Party, and The Estate Manager. And it's translated by Hugh Tredennick and Robin Waterfield, edited with new material by Robin Waterfield. And this came out in 1990. I think the original, some of the translations go back to 1970, but this particular edition, 1990. I call this third series cover of Penguin Classics, where they went to the sort of cream border. And it's not in the best condition, but it's not heavily marked up at all. There's a few highlights in here, oh well. But I really never see this in the stores in my area, so I was on the lookout for it. I thought, here I am, here the book is, let's join up. And I'll try to peel that used sticker off there, and, could be in better condition, but it's not falling apart. So I actually read this in a ebook edition already, so I'll just add this to my collection. Let me read you a little bit from the first piece, which is Socrates' Defense, which is repeated. It's a different take on the Apology by Plato. Remember how that famous work, and I've covered that on this channel before. So here is, let's just read the first paragraph or half page or so. Socrates' defense. I think it is worth recording what Socrates thought about his defense and the end of his life once he had been summoned for trial. Now, others have written about the trial, and they have all touched upon his arrogant tone. So it is clear that this is how Socrates actually spoke. But what they didn't make clear, and without it the arrogance of his tone is bound to appear rather foolish, is this. He had already decided that for him death was preferable to life. However, Hermogenes, the son of Hipponicus, was a companion of Socrates, and he has divulged information about him which shows that his haughtiness was in keeping with his thinking. Hermogenes reported that he noticed Socrates discussing anything rather than the trial, and that he said to him, "Really, Socrates, ought you not to be considering your defense?" Socrates at first replied, "Don't you think that my whole life has been a preparation for my defense?" "How?" "Because I have consistently done no wrong, and this, I think, is the finest preparation for a defense." Hermogenes tried another tack. "Don't you see that the Athenian courts have often been prevailed upon by argument to put innocent men to death, and equally have often acquitted wrongdoers either out of pity aroused by the speeches or because they've been flattered?" "Yes, but as a matter of fact," he said, "twice now, when I was trying to consider my defense, the divine opposed me." And on it goes. So you can see it's got a sort of a narrative pulse, and I'm not sure I read this particular translation in the edition I found on the ebook, so I'll compare it, but it's good to have it in the collection. Xenophon, Conversations of Socrates. Great to have another point of view looking at this most famous of philosophers. Next up, a couple volumes of poetry, and this is the Poems of Propertius, translated by A.E. Watts. Let me read you the back cover copy. Sextus Propertius, who lived from 50 to 10 BC, wrote during the Great Augustan period. Most of his poems, which show a superb mastery of the elegiac couplet, were inspired by his mistress, Cynthia, whom he idealized, at any rate in his first book, well, there's a story, with a passionate intensity. As the affair degenerated into faithlessness and quarrels, Propertius began to find his subjects in contemporary events and manners, in history and legend. But it is his love poetry, with its many delightful vignettes of life in Rome, which ensure for him a unique, if not a major, position in Latin literature. So a minor Latin poet, but a recognizable name nonetheless. And this was first published in 1961 by Centaur Press. This edition was published in 1966, a reprint by Penguin Classics. And this is that second series format with the all black cover and a big prominent illustration. And yeah, it looks good. Let's take a sample of some Propertius. Let's see if I can find a poem from book one. How long is this one? Oh, we can get through it. It's about 40 lines or so. I think we can do it. This is the A.E. Watts translation. This poem is titled The First Year, from book one. Cynthia began my griefs when her bright eyes took me, then first sex-bitten for her prize. Love dashed my lordly stare to earth that day. His foot was on my head, the conqueror's way, until he taught me, graceless God, distaste for a well-ordered life and girls who're chaste. And still my year-old madness does not cool, though all my prayers find heaven unmerciful. Milanian shrank from no ordeal until he broke fierce Atalanta's stubborn will. Through caves on Mount Parthenium he would stray, love crazed, and look on shaggy beasts of prey. And how he felt Hylaeus's club was known to rocks of Arcady that heard him groan. Hence, my dear Tullus, he contrived to tame the girl whose speed of foot had brought her fame. So potent in love's cause can pleading be, when backed by worthy deeds. But love, with me, is slow and uninventive, and he proves forgetful, too, of all his well-tried moves. You who with secret rites and sorcery mislead the moon and lure her from the sky, come, change my lady's temper, show your skill. My cheeks are pale, let hers be paler still. Then will I own your far-fetched spells of force to turn the stars and rivers from their course. And you, my friends, at this late time of day, who call a comrade fallen, by the way, find if you can some drastic cure, which I will bear unflinching, knife or cautery, if only you relieve my fevered breast, and I may speak my anger unrepressed. Send me to earth's remotest land or sea, where out of woman's sight my paths will be. You who can win the gods' indulgent ear, stay on, well matched in love and free from fear. But love is gall to me, for Venus keeps my nights on edge, and passion never sleeps. Shun this distemper, let attachment last, let place and habit hold affection fast. Some may be deaf to warnings, yet will they recall my words with, what grief, one day. So that was the poem, The First Year by Propertius. Not bad. I think the translation is sort of readable. Fun to get that one. That's a name I'm familiar with, but I hardly ever have seen these authors in the used bookshops. So when I saw a bunch of them, they probably came from the same owner who donated them or traded them in. I thought, let's scarf them up. This one is another book of poetry. It's called The Poems of Tibullus, or Tibullus, translated by Philip Dunlop. And Tibullus's years are 55 to 19 BC. Here's what the back copy says. The elegiac poetry of Tibullus is an essential, if less acclaimed, feature of the great Augustan period, as he writes of his mistress Delia or of Nemesis, the grasping prostitute. His couplets lightly and subjectively reflect both the amoral life of the city and the peaceful atmosphere of the country with its rites and festivals. And Tibullus may claim to have added two elements to Latin poetry, the concept of true love and a unique infusion of religious feeling in his pastoral pieces. This translation also contains the Tibullan collection of verses written by other poets of the circle of Messala, Tibullus's patron. The cover, designed by Germano Fascetti, shows a detail from a fresco depicting the household gods and the guardian serpent in the Casa dei Veti, Pompeii. That's Tibullus, and yeah, sounds pretty cool. This edition came out in 1972. And let's go to book one and read the first thing that meets our eye to give you a taste. Now this one's kind of long, so I'm just going to see how far I can get. I'll look for a stopping point. Looks like the lines are longer as the way this is formatted. So I'm not sure what the original meter was. Okay. Poem 1, Part 1. The amassing of wealth in yellow gold I leave to others, and owning many acres of plowed earth, let them be terrified by the enemy at the door and by persistent hardship, their sleep routed by the blast of the trumpet of war. I would have poverty lead me along through a life of comfort, so long as my hearth glows and my fire still burns. I'll be a real farmer and sow the soft-stemmed vines in their season and stout fruit trees with a practiced hand. Never my hopes desert me, but always offer heaped-up harvest and supply the rich must in brimming vats. Because I am respectful of every lone tree trunk in the plowland that holds a wreath of flowers, and every old crossroads stone, and whatever the harvest that each new season produces, the first fruits are laid up for the farmer god, golden Ceres. For you, from my farm, a wreath of corn ears must hang on the outside of your temple doors. and in the apple orchard be placed a red-painted guardian, a Priapus, with his cruel sickle to terrify the birds. You too, once protectors of a prosperous estate, now of a poor one, you, my lares, you also take your dues. In those days a slaughtered heifer purified unnumbered bullocks. Now a lamb is a small victim for my tiny plot. And that's just the first page of it. Obviously one of the pastoral poems there. That's auspicious, that looks pretty good. Definitely something I'll look at, hopefully soon. But yeah, so nice to find a rarity, the Poems of Tibullus. I wonder if that one's still in print. I'll have to check my my Penguin Classics book. Now, the last of the Penguin Classics in this book haul is another relatively unfamiliar name to me. This is history, and it's Ammianus Marcellinus, the later Roman Empire, AD 354 to 378. And this is third series, Penguin Classics. Let me read you the back cover. Ammianus Marcellinus is the last great Roman historian, whose writings stand comparison with those of Livy and Tacitus. He was not a professional man of letters, but an army officer of Greek origin born at Antioch and contemporary with the events described in what remains of his work. He set himself the task of continuing the histories of Tacitus from AD 96 down to his own day. The first 13 of his 31 books are lost. The remainder describe a period of only 25 years, AD 354 to 378. And the reigns of the emperors Constantius, Julian, Jovian, Valentinian, and Valens. Is that Valentinian? Yeah, Valentinian and Valens, for which he is a prime authority. He was a pagan and an admirer of the apostate Julian, to whose career about half the surviving books are devoted. Nevertheless, his treatment of Christianity is free from prejudice, and his impartiality and good judgment have been generally acknowledged. The cover shows a statue thought to be of Valentinian I at Barletta. And I take an interest in this because I might have seen a person on YouTube. There's a young woman who does some really good videos on like classical literature and history, and she might have covered this guy. I can't remember for sure. It's been a long time. But anyway, I got interested in that. But I'm mainly interested because the period that's covered here roughly straddles the career of St. Augustine, I think. And I'm currently reading The City of God in Great Books of the Western World. So this would be kind of a nice companion to that, because Augustine in that work is grappling with the sack of Rome, and he talks a lot about the pagans versus the Christians and who's to blame for all this, and he's setting up his whole City of God framework. But this might be an interesting counterpoint or companion to what Augustine is talking about. So yeah, let's take a peek at the first available book in Ammianus Marcellinus, and this is a little section on, I'll just read you like the first page, almost the first page. The cruelty of the Caesar Gallus. Let's get a taste of Ammianus Marcellinus. The cruelty of the Caesar Gallus. When this arduous campaign reached its end, both sides were exhausted. Their morale had been sapped by its manifold dangers and difficulties. But before the trumpets had ceased to bray or the troops had taken up their winter quarters, cruel fortune let loose upon the state the squalls of another storm, which arose from the many fearful misdeeds of the Caesar Gallus. Gallus in his early manhood had risen at a bound from what seemed a hopeless depth of misery to the height of power, and going beyond the limits of the authority granted to him was causing universal mischief by his excessive harshness. His pride was inflated by his kinship with the imperial house and by the fact that he shared the name of Constantius, and it appeared that only lack of strength kept him from embarking on hostilities against the author of his prosperity. His savage nature found a sharp spur in his wife, who had been previously married by her father Constantine to his nephew, King Hannibalian. As sister of the emperor, her pride was swollen beyond measure. She was a fury in mortal form, incessantly adding fuel to her husband's rage, and as thirsty for human blood as he. Time made the pair more expert in inflicting harm. Adroit secret dealers in backstairs gossip, versed in the evil trade of exaggerating slight rumors, brought them the false reports that they wished to hear, and innocent people were charged with aspiring to the throne or practicing black arts. Notorious above lesser cases, once their tyranny no longer stopped short at minor crimes, was the sudden and wicked death of Climatius, a prominent native of Alexandria. The story went that his mother-in-law, who lusted after him but found herself unable to seduce him, gained entrance to the palace through a back door, and by the presence of a valuable necklace to the queen, procured the dispatch of a death warrant to Honoratus, at that time Count of the East. By this means, Climatius, an utterly innocent man, was put to death without being allowed to open his mouth or speak. Well, what are you going to say? The Romans, right? The Romans being Romans. That's Ammianus, Marcellinus, the later Roman Empire. 2 more books on this small haul to talk about. The next one, I was inspired by watching a video by Libro Paradiso, and I will link to his video in the show description. He said some very kind words about the author Paul Bowles. And I don't think I have any Paul Bowles in the house. So I thought, this was one of my hunches, I thought maybe Baldwin's Book Barn has it. And sure enough, they had a novel by him. Libro Paradiso talked mostly about short stories, which I'm going to keep an eye out for. I might see if they're available in Library of America edition. But I thought, I'm going to get this because he spoke so highly of Paul Bowles, and I respect Libro Paradiso a lot. So I found The Spider's House by Paul Bowles. This is his 3rd or 4th novel. It was originally published in 1955 and then reissued in 1982. This is, and Bowles writes a preface to this edition, and this happens to be published by Black Sparrow Press. No copy on the back, very plain, nice design, good condition paperback, doesn't look to be marked up at all. So yeah, let's give this a shot. I'll skip the preface. And give you a taste of, let's just read the first couple paragraphs from the prologue of The Spider's House. Don't know anything about this book. I just bought it based on the name, based on the recommendation. It was just about midnight when Stenham left Si Jafar's door. "I don't need anyone to come with me," he had said, smiling falsely to belie the sound of his voice, for he was afraid he had seemed annoyed or been abrupt. And Si Jafar, after all, was only exercising his rights as a host in sending this person along with him. Really, I don't need anybody. For he wanted to go back alone, even with all the lights in the city off. The evening had been endless, and he felt like running the risk of taking the wrong turnings and getting temporarily lost. If he were accompanied, the long walk would be almost like a continuation of sitting in Si Jafar's salon. But in any case, it was too late now. All the male members of the household had come to the door, even stood out in the wet alley, insisting that the man go with him. Their adieux were always lengthy and elaborate, as if he were leaving for the other side of the world, rather than the opposite end of the Medina. And he consciously liked that, because it was a part of what he thought life in a medieval city should be like. However, it was unprecedented for them to force upon him the presence of a protector, and he felt there was no justification for it. The man strode ahead of him in the darkness. I'll stop there. Already getting a sense of atmosphere from that. That's the Spider's House. Paul Bowles. Thanks to Libro Paradiso for recommending him. I'll let you all know what I think of Paul Bowles once I finish that book. And the last one was another serendipitous discovery. As many of you know who've been following the channel, I'm in the middle of a epic reading project, reading In Search of Lost Time in the new Penguin Classic Deluxe Edition translations, and I'm currently reading The Prisoner, and I'll probably get through that in the next couple months. I expect to finish the whole thing, but I'm already thinking ahead to like what I want to do once I'm finished reading Proust for the second time. And instead of rereading him right away, I'll take some time off from that. I will definitely reread the Moncrief translation when I do come back to it. But I thought I've been so immersed in Marcel Proust's work that I think now that I will be ready to read some biographies, some criticism, that sort of thing. Just dabble in it. So I found a book that was on my mental list, and I'm really happy to get it, and it's called Proust's Way, a field guide to In Search of Lost Time by Roger Shattuck, winner of the National Book Award. This came out in the year 2000. I have read a couple other books by Roger Shattuck and liked them both. He was a good, excellent critic, and knows his stuff, and is a decent writer too. So here's what the blurbage says. For any reader who has been humbled by the language, the density, or the sheer weight of Marcel Proust's In Search of Lost Time, Roger Shattuck is a matchless companion. Winner of the National Book Award for Marcel Proust, a sweeping examination of Proust's life and work. So that's not this book that won the National Book Award. He wrote another book called Marcel Proust. That won the award. Shattuck now offers an eminently useful and readable guidebook to Proust's epic work, presenting Proust as a novelist whose philosophical gifts were fully matched by his irrepressible comic sense. The culmination of a lifetime of scholarship, Proust's Way will serve as the next generation's guide to the book that many consider the undisputed masterpiece of the 20th century novel. Okay. So maybe a more digestible, readable version of what he won the National Book Award for. Well, let's take a look at the introduction and read you well, I'll skip the intro because that's just talking about the book. Let's get right into the heart of it. All right, we'll start with this chapter 1, the work and its author, and I'll read you the first paragraph or two. Let me know how you think this sounds. Is it promising? Among the handful of literary classics produced in this century, Marcel Proust's In Search of Lost Time is the most oceanic and the least read. Joyce and Kafka, Faulkner, and Camus sell hundreds of thousands of copies. Proust sells barely in the thousands. His substantial reputation as an extreme case of something, long-windedness, psychological vivisection, the snobbery of letters, salvation by memory, rests not on wide readership, but on a myth of uniqueness that often hides his true attractions. In an era when the significance and the privileged status of the work of art are being both questioned and reinforced, this ultimate monument to the artistic vocation, banked high on all sides by interpretation and biography, refuses to sink back into the sands of time. The inordinate length of Proust's novel, 3,000 pages, goes a long way toward explaining the wariness of readers. Balzac's 100-volume printout of all French society comes in separate packages. The links between the volumes serve as a special reward for the persevering. The first two sections of Proust's novel, Cambrai and Swan in Love, can stand separately and have earned many admirers. Yet true believers insist that there is no substitute for the cumulative effect of the whole work. Understandably, many readers hesitate to make the investment of time and attention required to assimilate even a fraction of the whole. Compounding the challenge of sheer magnitude and of an extended plot, there is Proust's style. His transcontinental sentences contribute to the appearance of a motionless plot. The original French is no easier than the translations. How can one follow a storyline through such labyrinthine prose? One reason why true believers are right to insist on a full reading is that you cannot distinguish the plot if the first sections are all you have to go on. Proust's first critics were at a terrible disadvantage. They had to interpret the whole from a few parts. As a result, Proust had to serve as the sole qualified guide to his own uncompleted work. He devoted endless letters and several newspaper interviews to rebutting his critics and explaining episodes still to come. Gradually, Proust's description of his work has been validated by several generations of critics, but for 15 years his work appeared piecemeal in the face of enormous odds against comprehension. It looked at first like a conspiracy against readers. And on it goes. So he's doing some setup there. He's acknowledging all the problematics of Proust's length, his style, and the piecemeal issuing of each volume. So yeah, I'm gonna definitely read this once I'm finished, In Search of Lost Time, which probably will be in 2 to 3 months. So that is my small haul. What do you think? I think I made out pretty good. I was really happy to find some things I actually was looking for. I wanted to find some Paul Bowles, and I did. I was hoping to find some Proust criticism or biographies, and I did. And I'm always on the lookout for Penguin Classics, and I found some rarities there, some Latin poets and some later Latin work. So yeah, really into that. It was a lot of fun sharing this with you. And thanks for spending some time with me. I hope you come back. Remember to like, hit the subscribe bell button, whatever they call it. And I'll see you again soon, I hope. Bye-bye.